In this video, we're going to focus on how we can put this input here in the center, and as we adjust the input here, it will start to change here the donut chart, which is quite interesting. And secondly, if we change the size of it and resize it, it will also go in the center and maintain it nicely in the center here. Of course, you see here the white space, which is basically outside of the canvas, so that's being ignored. But let's start to look how we can do this. So let's start to explore how to create the input in the center of a donut chart in Chart.js. First thing what we need is to get the default template, which you can find here on chartjs3.com getting started, this specific link here, which you can find as well in the description box. So once you are on the site, scroll down and copy this chunk of code here. If you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. I'll paste it all in there, cut out the title, and put that in here. Save, refresh. There we are. So now we have this, but what I want to do is I want to convert it into a donut chart. So for that, I will make the size of it 500 pixels. Then I will scroll down here and I'll say this will be a donut chart. There we are with a small letter D. If I save that, but what I want as well is remove the scales because a donut chart doesn't have any X and Y scale. Refresh, there we are. So now what I want to do is the center here, or at least the donut ring, make them smaller so the center becomes larger. So I'm going to say here comma, and we're going to say here cut out percentage, let's say 90%. If I save that, refresh, that looks quite nice. And then maybe what we could do here as well is to make it a nice round item. So I'm going to say here border radius, and let's say equals 10 pixels. Save that, refresh. Alright, so now we have this, but what I want to do here, I want to remove all of them. I only want one item here. So what I'm going to do, and then maybe here this cutout could be in 95%. That's very nice. I'm going to remove all the colors except for one. But we'll do that here as well. And then here we only have one value, or basically we have two values. Let's say here we have a value of 90 and we have another one of 10. So what will happen if I save it and refresh, it will have always the same colors here, and including this, don't worry about that. That is basically this here. So what I will do is the following. I'm just going to remove this, or I don't remove it, I'll just don't show it like that. There you are. And then what I want to do is, this is like 90%. Imagine this is like a gauge showing you how many percent is completed. So we can say here 90%, and this is 10% incomplete, but the 10% incomplete needs to have a different color, which I will make just fully transparent, so it's not noticeable. So I'll say transparent, copy this, and do the same here for the border color. Save, refresh. So now, while it's still here, as you can see if I click on this, it's just transparent, but you can see it is here, even if I hover over it here. So what we could do maybe is hide the tooltip as well. So let's hide the tooltip here, the plugins. Then we say here, tooltip, and then we say here, enabled equals false. Save, refresh. As you can see here, now I hover over it, nothing happens. But still, if I click this, this still works. Alright, so now we have this. What I want to do now is start to work on creating input. And this is very important. We're going to create an input, not in HTML, but we're going to do it in the, well, we will use HTML code, but we will not type it in our file. We will make it in here. This is necessary because once we start to resize the chart, if I would change the size here, well, probably I didn't do here any percentage, so let's say like this here, if I do 90% here, or something like that, save that, refresh, and then as I expand, this here needs to expand because we want to put the input in the very center. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to just create that and use a trick here for that. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to say here after the options, put an enter, and then what I'm going to say here on resize. So basically this is a Chartjs command that will resize the chart, and then everything will be in right proportion. This means the same we can use for the input if we create the input within Chartjs. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to just use here very simple JavaScript command to build the item. So we're going to say here this will be the context. Then we'll put in here a callback functionality, and basically put a comma here. And what I want to do here is, first of all, I want to create, or first of all, I want to extract the input if it exists. So I say here let score input, which is basically the input name, will be equal to document.getElementById, and then I'm just going to say here score input, which is a score or percentage input. It doesn't matter. You can name it anything you want. So here's the thing. We didn't create it. So of course there will be a response of undefined or null. So what I'm going to do here is create an if statement. And this if statement will say, if there is no score input, in that case, what I want to do then is create one. So this is the only item here, so that on resize it will automatically understand this. So then what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to grab this score input. That's why I use here the let value, not a constant, because I'm going to use this here again. They say equals here document dot create element. Remember, we have to create it because it's missing. And what we are going to create basically is just an input element. That's it. So once we have that, what I want to do now is I want to say this score input dot ID. I'm going to give it the ID name of score input. Very straightforward. So it's very consistent. So later on, that when we resize, it will recognize it once it's made first. So the next thing what I want to do is I want to put in here a score value. So I'm going to say here the score input dot value, and this value will be soft coded, and the soft coded will come basically from here, from the data here. Basically we go to data sets. How to do this? Well, we have the context here. So let's put in here 100 first, and I'm going to show you here what is this context really doing, because this is becoming later on very important. So if I say context, save, refresh, alright, so now you can see here we have the context. Then I can scroll down here, and you will see here somewhere this data, and there we are, click on the data. Then we have here the data set, and then I'm going to get here data set index 0. There's only one, a length of 1, so that's why there's a 1 here. And then we're going to say here the value would be, in the data sets, the value would be the data 0, index 0 as well, because number 90. So what I'm going to do here then, just make it easy, say here, context dot data sets index 0 dot data index 0. So if I do this, and save this and refresh, let's see if we find anything at all here right now. So if we look at this, of course, it doesn't show yet because I didn't append it to the child or to the parent. So it didn't work yet, but we have this part here now, and there. So now I guess maybe what would be very useful here first is to create the item. So I'm going to say here context.canvas. And then what I really want to do is I want to append it. To what do I want to append this item? I want to append it not in the canvas, but within here. So basically this is the parent, and the canvas is the child element. So what I want to do is I want to have another child element, which could be basically the brother, or what's the right term, it would be the sibling, because it could be brother or sister. So the sibling of the canvas. But that input element has a parent, which is chart box. So this is very important. So what I'm going to do here is context.canvas, and then I'm going to say get from this one the parent node, which is the parent of whatever the canvas is, which is in this case the chart box. That's the parent. And I'm going to say here append child, so attach the child to this parent, and the child is score input. Very straightforward. Save this, refresh. Alright, so once we have this, you can see here now we have the score input here. Of course, it is still not really done, but this has a value here, and we still need to position it here correctly. So it has a value of 90 that we have assigned here, because we have a 90 here. So what I'm going to do now is the following. Let's give this some more suitable item, because eventually we need to position it in the center. So what I'm going to say here next, I want to say the minimum and maximum, because as you can see here, if I go here, I guess this right now is not even a type of number. So let's put in a type. So I'm going to say here, score input equal a type equal number. Then what I want to do here as well is score input.min. So I want it to be a maximum of a minimum of 0 because it's a percentage number. And let's assume we cannot go above 100% and we cannot go below 0%, which makes sense. Unless we're going to compare something. But anyway, that's not the case in this here. Of course, you can do anything you want in it, but it's just a sample here. I'm just showing you all the options you can have. So if I have this now here, refresh, we should see here now min and max. Here we are. Then we have this. And then what I want to do here is, let's add up here, just for the sake of it, a class. So go to here, input, or score input dot class list dot add. And then what I'm going to say here, I'm going to add up a class called score. Although I won't be doing anything with it probably. But anyway, as you can see here, we have the ID, we have a number, we have the min, max, and we have a class of score. Alright, so once we did this, what I need to do now is start to assign a few items, because I need to create here a fixed width and height. This is for me important because I need to expect how the shape will be look like here, so we can position it in the center. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to just say here above, I'm going to give it a defined width and height. So I'm going to say a constant width equals, let's say 75 pixels. I just put in 75. Then another constant for the height equals what is suitable, maybe 50 pixels. That's fine. So I would say here 50 and 75. You might say we can assign it immediately in here in JavaScript. That is correct. But if you do like px, then later on we have to sanitize or clean up the value here, and that will become a bit messy. So I don't want to do that. Make it easier for myself. So then what I'm going to do here is the following. Just say here score input dot style dot width equals. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to do here a backtick, which is below your escape button on your keyboard. And then what I'm going to do here, temp, that's what we call template literal. So I'm going to say $, parentheses, curly braces, and then width, and I'm going to say here dot pixels. It's an easier way for concatenation. Copy this. I'm going to do exactly the same, but then for the height, and then I'm going to say here the height. Save, refresh. As you can see here, we have this here, and later on we're just going to do some basic CSS on this. But I want to push it here in the center. So what are we going to do then? What I want to do here now is basically, first of all, we have to assign here a position relative, because what happens is this is where we're going to work from. This is the parent, and within the parent, it's relative wherever it moves in on here. So that's very important. So I'm going to say here as well, another score input dot style dot position equals relative. The moment we do this, it will start to move within the item later on, once we start to assign the left, right, top, and bottom. Basically, now we can basically assign a specific pixel position, or position it with pixel to move it in the right location. I don't know if that's a proper sentence, but that's alright. I think you understand what I mean. So what I'm going to do now is let's start to work on the exact pixel location. So we are in here. I'm going to just remove this. We have still this resize bracket that's in here. So after the if, once this if is done, so if it's created once, it is fine. We should not touch it anymore. But what we do need here is the position. The position will be based on the resize, and the resize will be based on the canvas. So what I'm going to say here, basically the following. I'm going to just say a constant. Then I'm going to say an x position. That's what we need to know. And what is the x position? Well, in this case, I'm going to work on it very easy. And let me just reduce the size of this, because I realize the size is slightly too big. So let's comment this out, or else we get an error. And let's put this on maybe 60%. Alright, that's a bit better. It's a bit more easier to look at. So what I want to do is I want to push that in here, and we're going to calculate from this. So this is very important. There's some space here, and this space, even if you move it up here, will not disappear. I want to focus on that. It's basically CSS. We just have to find a way for that one. But that's alright. I will ignore that for now. So what I'm going to do is I need to move this one in here, and I get basically the canvas height and width for that. One thing here is that we do need to remove this item here because I cannot use a chart area. The reason why we cannot use a chart area because of the initialization of it. In the beginning, the first load or the second load just doesn't have any chart area values, and this creates a error. And even if you try to make a workaround for the error, I cannot figure it out. So that's very important to understand. So what we're going to do here now is the following. So we're going to say here this, and what I want here, oh well, let me show you that as well. I'm going to say here context. Let's say console log context, and I'm going to show you what we're going to grab. Save, refresh. Console log here, click on this, and then we're going to look here for the height, which is 431, and then the width 431, which is of course same because they're a rectangle shape, or sorry, a square shape. So then all we need here is basically context dot width, and when we have this, the position of this is the full width from left to right. What I need then is divide by 2 to get this point. So I say divide by 2. There we are. So once we did that, we have this. And now what I want is an enter. You can just basically copy this, but then I'm going to say here the Y position, and I'm going to grab here the height. So once we did this, what I'm going to do now is going to give it the proper location. Of course, we will not be done because we still need to fine tune here, but I'm going to show you what we did. So we say here, score input dot style, and there we say here dot left, and the left will be based on X position. Then you can guess it already. We also need the one for top, and the top is based on the Y position. Save, refresh. Alright, interesting. So we don't get a relative here. Let me double check what is going on. Position relative. Let me save one more time just to see if I am not mistaken anything here. Is this? Alright, so now hold on, I will just check what's going on. So after looking, and that's my bad, and that's the reason why I was also using this here, is I forgot to put a concatenation of the pixel. So this is very important. We're going to say here plus pixels, of course, or else it will not understand it. It is still a CSS style or design. So when we do that, it disappears. So you might say, what's going on? Why is it disappearing? Because we have here the left, and then where's the left, and then we have the top here. All right, as you can see here, the top, and then it goes down 200 pixels. So what I need to do here, instead of top, I need to say here this one, I need to go up, and up is the negative. Here we are. So when I do a negative, it goes up accordingly, and it goes up to the top. So I'm going to say here, this should be, let's solve this one here right now. I'm going to say here, multiply by -1. There we are. So that works. So now what I want to do is, because it's still not in the center, the reason why it's not in the center is because we have the width and the height that we still need to consider of the element. This is the reason why I had this as well here above. So we have it here, but we have to use it here as well. So what I'm going to do here now is, what I'm going to do is, from this one, we still need to move a little bit. Basically, 50% of this width of this item must be going here. So we need to deduct 50% of this. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say minus. We're going to grab here the parentheses. There's a width, divide by 2. Save that, refresh. Alright, so that works. So now we need to go still up 50%, which is, I guess here we can do it again. Now we're going to say here, I guess we could do that here. We say here minus, and then height, divide by 2, save. There we are. Alright, so that starts to look nice. Let's give this some proper CSS design. And you could completely remove the borders and everything on the CSS to make the design how you would like it. So it will make look like it is basically in the canvas. So what I'm going to do here, just quickly here up, some CSS here, enter, and I'm going to say here hashtag, and I'm going to say here score input. And then in here, what I'm going to say here, we can say here font size. Let's say is it 25 pixels? That's fine if we have a nice one. Then we're going to say here font weight, bolder, and text align, center, maybe your border is 0. Let's save that. There we are. We have still the outline. We could even remove the outline here as well. Outline equals 0. say refresh. All right. This could be removed as well, but it requires some additional skill or text. I think it's JavaScript or CSS probably, but what exactly, there's a specific item. It's very easy to find online. Anyway, we have this here, and I feel like this maybe could be 40 pixels. Maybe that's even better. That's all right, or let's do 35 to make sure that we're not extending it too much. All right, so that looks nice. Now what I want to do is, of course, when I go up, this should start to match nicely. Scroll down here. I'm going to create now our function because, oh, let me just show you. If I'm going to move this, you can see here, it maintains center. Of course, it is not fully in the center because we still have this item here. So I'm going to remove the legend because I'm not able to use the chart area. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, chart area, in the description box, there's a video about understanding the chart area. Very useful. Sadly enough, cannot be used here. So what I'm going to do here is just the legend in the options. All right, then I'm going to have here in the tooltip, comma, legend, display false. Save that, refresh. So now it looks like we're better in the center, but you might say, well, no, it doesn't look really because of this here. And instead here, yeah, well, I guess it's because of the item here as well. Anyway, doesn't matter. It looks quite decent for me. I'll accept that one. So what I want to do now is make it functional. Scroll down. I'm going to create the function here. And in here, we're going to say here is the following. I'm going to say function, and let's call this the percentage, because we have only allowed to go from 0 to 100%. So then, what I want to do here is, let's see, we need to get a few items. So I'm going to grab here the parameters. And what is the parameter here? Well, we want to have here the value, comma, and then here eventually the chart. That's the one I need. So the value will be whatever we put in here, and the chart is basically this item here. So what I'm going to do now is here, and let's scroll down a bit, or let me just make some additional space here. It's a bit more comfortable. I'm going to say here document dot get element by ID, and the ID we're going to get is of course the score input. So basically I want to grab the score input, and then what I'm going to say add event listener, and the add event listener will trigger based on input on here, and we say comma, we have here an event as well, although we won't be using that event. So then what I want to do here is the following. I want to trigger this percentage function, and then what do I want more? I want these arguments that was here the parameter. So the value for this is, first of all, you have the my chart, or that's the chart here, that's my chart, so it's a comma, my chart, that's the easiest one. And then here the other one will be, very simply, this item here. Put that in there. And maybe we could even use a shorthand for this, I guess. But that's alright. For now, I'll accept this. We can refactor it always once we have a working model. So once we have this, what I want to do here is I just say a score or percentage. Now I guess score is better because we already have a term percentage here. So then if I do a console log, and I just say a score, see if we have something, refresh. Then if we do here, there we are. We get something here, min, max, or whatever the value would be. Value, I don't see the value here, but that's alright. So now what I'm going to do here is I can get the score.value, and then we can probably see if we grab or extract the value. There we are. Alright, so that works, and of course when it's 100, it will not go any more higher than 100. Beautiful. So now, how do we trigger it? So what I'm going to say here is very simple. This. I'm going to grab here what we need to do. Let's think, because we have the chart here, which is my chart. So I'm going to say constant, and what we need here is the data itself. So I'm going to say constant. I'm going to use an object destructuring equals chart, and what I need here is just the data. I'm going to grab this data here as shorthand, and then what I'm going to say is the following. We're going to say here, basically we need an if statement, but let's start with it. I'm going to say data, that's this one here. Basically what I did from chart to data. If you're wondering why this, let's go back. We get basically here, that's this chart, and we jump immediately to the data object here, and then I want to pinpoint this here to update. So what I'm going to say here is the following. say here data.data set, basically what we did to above as well, dot data, and then we say here index 0 as well, say equal what exactly score.value. So once we did this, what I want to do as well is the following. I want to grab this. Then we say here for number 1, remember we are only allowed to be 100 in here. Where is that? In here. And if this is 90 and 10, they need to recalculate both of them, or we need to recalculate both of them. So we're going to say here will be this minus 100, or 100 minus the value here. So that's the first one. And if we do this, and I'm going to say chart.update, we should see here now a change in it. If I go there you are. As you can see, it starts to update nicely. And if I go back, go down, there we are. Alright, but of course we have a problem if I do 100. Or I guess we cannot even go up, so that's already blocking it, so that's fine. But if I do here -1, basically it is not really allowed, but it does something. So what I'm going to do here is just very simple. We're going to recalculate that one. So if statement, and I'm going to say in the if statement, if score.value, if the score.value is bigger or equal to 0, and score.value is smaller than 100, in that case, this is the formula I want to use. It's very straightforward. Else, if we're going to create another if statement, and in this if statement, basically we're going to do the same, except now if score is equal to 100. So let's say here this will be bigger or equal to 100. In that case, the value is always 100. Very straightforward, and this will be equal to 0. And then else, if basically it's the opposite, if it is below, of course, in that case, say this 0 and then this 100. So once we did this, it should work all nicely, and everything is fully updated, save, refresh. So if I say here -10, alright, as you can see here, well, this is not, maybe we can even set this as well as a value, but you can see the chart itself here will say this is just the same value. Alright, so what I'm going to do here maybe just to force that in there is to force the input here. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to say here this dot inner text equals 100. Very straightforward. Sorry, not inner text, for that should be value. So we'll overwrite, even if we are doing something weird, it will overwrite it. And then copy this, do the same here, 0. Save, refresh. So if I do here 100, alright, that's fine. If I do here -10, then it just goes to 0. Absolutely nice. So if I say 110, there you are, it recorrects itself. Beautiful. And this is basically how you can put an input here, and we can play around with this and have this so-called percentage gauge donut chart. So if you like this video and maybe you enjoy more and you want to learn even other items, in that case I'm going to recommend you this video here on how to add text and value at the center of a donut chart, which is slightly different but also very, very interesting to have.